especially when they become politically inconvenient. Eric Schneiderman was a stalwart political ally of the left, but he's out of the picture now. So move on, quickly move on, and is back to vilifying Trump and any woman who supports his agenda. Are any of you fed up with this rank hypocrisy? Me too. And that's the angle. Joining us now for a reaction is Harmeet Dhillon, an attorney and RNC committeewoman in California, along with Monica Crowley from the London Center for Policy Research. Okay, we have so much news to get to, ladies. Let's start right here. The resistance loved Schneiderman because he represented for them this kind of superhero. You saw that Samantha Bee absurd little cartoon skit that she tried to scrub off of her website until someone grabbed it first. So he was the hero. And then when he was exposed, literally and figuratively, they kind of brush that aside and quickly move on. You see, we get rid of people fast, and you Republicans, you defend Donald Trump. Monica, how to respond to that?
That's a complete BS argument, Laura, because the Democrats will only throw over those who are accused of this kind of stuff when it's politically expedient for them to do so. For example, Senator Al Franken from a reliably Democratic state, Minnesota, if for whatever reason his seat was somehow in play for a Republican, they would have fought tooth and nail to preserve the guy. I mean, that kind of argument really doesn't hold a lot of water. The Democratic Party now for decades has protected men who have advanced the left-wing agenda, and in particular the pro-abortion agenda. You go back to Ted Kennedy, who actually killed a woman, and yet when he died, he was praised as a lion of the Senate and a real champion for women. Same thing with Bill Clinton until just recently. You know, it is a remarkable thing that the Democrats for so many years have said, we embrace humanity in the abstract, but when it comes to actual individuals, actual people, and actual women, they tend, and again, not everybody, I don't mean to make a sweeping generalization here, but some of their most high-profile men that they have celebrated have abused and assaulted women who have been closest to them.
You know what's just wild is when you go back and listen to his comments, Harmeet, I played one in the angle, what he could be described as himself. You know, you men who abuse women and threaten them, and they did, and talking about, of course, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, it really could have been just a narrative about the charges these women are now making about him, and they were in consensual relationships that were, I mean, twisted and slavish and abusive, et cetera, et cetera. Yet again, when you watch the way this is being covered, even certain Republicans. There was this woman, Amanda Carpenter, who used to work for Ted Cruz, and she was on MSNBC today, I guess, pushing a book. Listen to what she said.
It is infuriating when I see, especially, you know, I'm going to call out the women who I believe to be Christians, like Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Ronna McDaniel, who runs the RNC, go out and defend hush payments, you know, money to a porn star, an alleged child molester in Alabama.
Harmeet.
I mean, so what? I mean, that's ridiculous. The moral equivalence is not there. It's a big difference between a consensual relationship and a private settlement versus sexual assault and violence, as multiple Democrats have been accused of, as Monica mentioned. The fact that this guy was forced to resign within 3 hours, you know what that tells me? It tells me that Democrats knew. Democrats were silent. They did not have any qualms about rushing to judgment because he's been doing this for 8 years. The fifth woman came out today in the New York Post and told a story starting back in 2010 when he did the same thing to her, drove drunk, slapped her, choked her, demeaned her, etc. And so don't tell me for a minute that Democrats close to this guy didn't know. His staff knew. Staff transportation was used sometimes with these women, and his staff was used to deny the story to the New Yorker. And so, you know, they should be looking in the mirror today. The reason that Democrats quickly got rid of him in the evening was to hope that there wasn't going to be a news cycle. today, but we do need to talk about it. We need to talk about the fact that this man was allowed to get away with this for so many years, that he was hiding in plain sight with all these statements. There were a lot of people. Salman Rushdie is one of the famous people mentioned in the story who knew about this because he dated one of the women who was abused by this guy. All of these people kept silent because of the greater good, the moral relativism
you heard what Ronan
this guy.
Farrow said. Yeah, you heard what Ronan Farrow said in that interview, and I really salute his reporting on this. I mean, he's a young kid, 30 years old. But he said, look, it wasn't going to, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, it wasn't going to look good for the Democrat Party, Monica. And
it's the moral relativism. It's shocking. Yeah. It's, you know, it's, everything is okay if you love abortion.
And yes, that's absolutely true. And the other part of this equation, Laura, that's so important is the blatant hypocrisy part. And I just want to make this really clear. When you have a politician running for high office who professes to be a champion of family values and essentially a choir boy, and then they're caught in something like this, the whole thing blows up. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, they never professed to be a choir boy. Neither did Eric Schneiderman, but the difference with Schneiderman is that he was the chief law enforcement officer of the state of New York. He was the attorney general, very close to the governor, obviously wanted higher office. This was a man whose hypocrisy came in a different form. He was attacking Donald Trump in a whole range of ways. He was attacking Harvey Weinstein and using his legal authority as attorney general to go after these men. Properly so. But you know what, Laura? Those who shout the loudest are often the ones with the biggest skeletons in their closet. And that's the problem with Eric Schneiderman.
Yeah. The Buddha says the finger is always pointed back at you. So the more moralistic and the more judgmental, I guess, run the risk of, no one's perfect here. These are some of the headlines that we've seen recently about, again, the left-wing superhero, Eric Schneiderman. The real reason the left loves Schneiderman is they thought he'd take down Trump. Eric Schneiderman is gone, but the New York legal resistance to Trump will go on. They think this new acting attorney general, Barbara Underwood, would be a breakthrough attorney general if she received the permanent nomination from, I guess, the governor appoints her, Harmeet. And so she's argued 20 cases before the Supreme Court. She clerked for Thurgood Marshall. She's reliably liberal. These cases against the president will go on. Some people saying tonight on legal blogs that I was reading, all of it should be considered fruit of the poisonous tree in a way because of this tainted figure who is running these investigations and running these prosecutions. But the cases against Trump and I think treating Trump as the big nemesis, and maybe you can take some of the Mueller investigation under New York jurisdiction so we couldn't fire anybody. The left's still going crazy about all of that tonight.
Well, the left's going crazy about it, but the new attorney general is a career person. I don't think it's possible for somebody to be as biased and as, frankly, psycho about Trump as Schneiderman was. And so I think that maybe they'll take a step back. And, there have been Democrats who oppose Trump around the country, but they haven't been as vicious and personal as Eric Schneiderman. And I have to think that the skeleton in his closet is one reason why he, kind of couldn't come to terms that he's that person, and he sort of focused it on Donald Trump instead. So, but a lot of even liberal commentators have pointed out that a lot of his anti-Trump legal actions have been sort of a lot of sound and fury, signifying nothing. There's just this orgy of filing stuff, and very little comes out of it.
But it was about him. But this was, guys, this was about burnishing. And Monica, I'll let you close it out. Burnishing his own reputation. And when Andy Cuomo, I want to run for president, right? He wants to run for president. He had to be roadkill for Cuomo. He had to get him out of the way because he wants to be the Democrat nominee against Trump in 2020 or against some Republican if Trump for some reason doesn't run. That's why they got rid of him so fast. Monica, close out.
Yes, and it's a big loss for the left in this sense. I mean, you're right about Cuomo. He threw him overboard like that. Again, political expediency. But the other part of this is that Schneiderman was going after Donald Trump and his administration at the state level because the argument was if he prosecutes Trump and members of his administration and policies at the state level, that is immune from a presidential pardon. So now the left is going, oh, we lost our main guy, so we'll see if his replacement does the same thing.
Yeah, we got to find a quickie replacement to get Trump out of office because Lord knows we're losing all the substantive arguments. Fantastic panel. Thank you.